So, after watching the Spider-Verse movies, I've been wondering, who loves who more, Miles or Gwen? We know they both love each other a lot, but there's always one person who loves more than the other, right? So let's talk about the evidence we have from the two movies so far, Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. Let's start with Miles. We know he met Gwen in class when he made a joke and she was the only one who laughed. In that moment, he started talking to her because he'd never seen her before. But their conversation was interrupted by the teacher. Later, when Miles was with his uncle Aaron, he started bragging about how there was a girl who was into him. Aaron used this as an opportunity to teach him the iconic shoulder touch technique. So at this point, we know that Miles was really into Gwen, but we don't know how she felt about him. She barely knew Miles, and he barely knew her either. When Miles tried to use the shoulder touch technique on Gwen, things didn't go as planned. Not only did he make Gwen mad by accidentally getting his hand stuck in her hair, but he also ended up making her cut part of her hair off to free him. So, while Miles was really into Gwen, the awkward incident with the shoulder touch technique and the fact that he couldn't control his spider powers yet had put a damper on things. She wasn't too happy about the whole thing, and Miles was probably feeling pretty embarrassed. Fast forward to the big fight with Olivia Octopus, when Gwen suddenly shows up to help Miles and Peter B. Parker. Miles still tries to flirt with her, saying he likes her haircut, but Gwen is still a bit mad about what happened earlier. However, the two have a heart-to-heart conversation on the bus, where Gwen opens up about losing her best friend and feeling alone. Miles offers his friendship to her, and Gwen seems to appreciate it. You can see it in the way she smiles at him. It's like she's starting to feel something for Miles. So, based on that bus conversation, I'd say that Gwen started to develop some feelings for him. She even takes a picture of the two of them on the bus, which she still carries with her. Later, when Peter B. Parker is feeling down about his divorce from MJ, Miles tries to cheer him up with a joke about Spider-Man wearing a cape. Gwen notices this and realizes that Miles has a way of making people feel better. This only increases her attraction to him. She's starting to see what a great guy he is. Gwen's feelings for Miles continue to grow as she gets to know him better. There's a scene where Peter B. Parker is testing Miles to see if he can fight alongside them against Kingpin, and he fails the test. But Gwen still believes in him. You can see it in her face as she watches Miles try and fail. She has so much faith in him, just like Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham. It's clear that Gwen cares a lot about Miles and sees the best in him. Finally, in the final battle against Kingpin and his crew, Miles really steps up and starts fighting like a true superhero. Gwen is proud of him, and you can see it in her face. But then, she gets hit by Olivia Octopus and is about to be knocked into another dimension. Luckily, Miles saves her by grabbing her hand just in time. It's a beautiful shot of the two of them, and it's clear that Gwen's feelings for Miles have grown into full-blown love. The goodbye scene between them is really beautiful, but what's even more interesting is that it was originally supposed to have a kiss between the two characters. However, the developers decided to focus more on their relationship development, which I think is great because it doesn't feel forced or rushed. The two characters refer to each other as friends because they think they won't see each other again. In my opinion, I believe that Gwen is more in love with Miles because of the way she looks at him when she's leaving and how she smiles when she sees the picture of them together at the end of the movie. It's all really cute and heartwarming. Moving on to Across the Spider-Verse, it seems like Gwen is still head over heels for Miles. She's kept the haircut he accidentally gave her, and she's still thinking about him all the time. She even expresses her feelings through drumming, which is her outlet for stress. Her life has been pretty hectic lately with her father hunting her down, and she couldn't seem to find the right band to join. On top of all that, the person she cares about the most is in another universe. It's a lot to handle, but one thing that's clear is that she hasn't stopped thinking about Miles for a single moment. Miles, on the other hand, is also deeply in love with her. He's been drawing her all over his sketchbook and in his paintings because he's an artist, and that's how he expresses his feelings. Meanwhile, Gwen is expressing her feelings through her drumming. It's interesting to see how they both use their passions to cope with their separation. Despite only knowing each other for a short time, they have been thinking about each other non-stop for the past year. Their love story is woven throughout across the Spider-Verse, with songs like Calling, Hummingbird, Another Dimension, and Mona Lisa that perfectly capture their longing for each other. When Gwen finally gets the chance to see Miles again, she can't resist, even though Miguel specifically told her not to. She just can't bear the thought of being in the same universe as Miles and not seeing him, which leads to a lot of complications later in the movie. Meanwhile, Miles is just hanging out in his room after an argument with his parents, listening to Hummingbird when suddenly, a portal opens up and Gwen appears. It's a really awkward moment, because let's face it, Miles and Gwen are always a bit awkward around each other. They sometimes struggle to express their emotions in the right way, which leads to some really awkward and hilarious moments. When Gwen sees Miles after all this time, she can't help but give him a big hug, which leads to that awkward exchange where she comments on his growth spurt and he says her hair is pinker.
You grew, huh? Had a little growth spurt?
Yeah. Your hair has gotten pinker.
But it's also a really beautiful moment because it feels so authentic and natural. Miles' sketchbook is also filled with drawings of Gwen, and he even keeps the bus ticket from their first meeting in the first movie. Gwen carries the photo of them together too, and when she sees Miles' drawings, she's smitten. "I missed you too," she says, and the chemistry between them is undeniable. When they are together, it feels like they've known each other for a long time. The colors of their respective universes blend together in a beautiful visual metaphor for their connection. And their conversation is just as impactful and heartwarming. Gwen tells Miles that it's always great to talk to him, and she reveals to him that in every other universe, Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man, and it never ends well. Gwen doesn't tell Miles that she was forbidden from seeing him because he was considered a dangerous anomaly, but we all know that she didn't care if he was an anomaly or not. But before coming to this universe, she saw that in almost every other universe, her counterparts had fallen in love with Spider-Man and had met a tragic end. In a way, Gwen is telling Miles that she loves him without actually saying the words. She's afraid that something bad will happen if they pursue a relationship, but she's also deeply in love with him. Miles senses this, and he reaches for her hand, but he can tell that she's not ready yet. He respects her decision, but he also reassures her that it's okay to take things slow. "There's a first time for everything," he says, and she smiles and leaned on his shoulder. One of the things that Gwen loves about Miles is his positive attitude, and they share another awkward but beautiful moment when Miles' parents watch them chatting. Rio jokes that she doesn't even speak Spanish, a bit of jealousy there. She doesn't want Gwen to steal her son from her, and it's clear that she's judging her a bit. Many fans believe that if Rio hadn't interrupted, Miles and Gwen might have shared a kiss in that moment. The scene where Gwen meets Miles' parents is definitely awkward, but also really authentic and natural. Their relationship feels so relatable and true to life, and it's easy to see why so many fans are invested in their story. Unfortunately, she has to leave Miles' universe because she's not supposed to be there in the first place. She's on a mission and can't stay, but she couldn't resist seeing him one last time. But Miles follows her, leading to all the drama that ensues throughout the rest of the movie. In the Mumbattan scene, Gwen is initially mad at Miles for following her, but they still share some sweet moments. Spider-Man India even comments on the palpable romantic tension between them, saying, "How can you two even concentrate?" It's a light-hearted moment that adds some levity to the otherwise tense situation. In a pivotal moment of the film, Miles saves the captain from certain death, but in the process, Gwen thinks he has been crushed. In the original theater release, her panic and desperation as she searches for Miles is palpable, and you can feel the emotion in her voice. But in the digital version, the line and some other small details were removed, which left some fans feeling frustrated. Though the missing line might not have ruined the scene entirely, it did take away from the intensity of Gwen's emotions in that moment. She was truly terrified thinking that Miles had been crushed, and her concern and fear added a whole new layer of depth to the scene. After Miles saves the captain, Unaware that he just disrupted a canon event, he asks what she thinks, and Gwen said what I always think, you are amazing, and the way she looks at him when she said that was beautiful.
Oh, what do you think?
What I always think. You're amazing.
Throughout the movie, there are several moments where Gwen and Miles' jealousy is apparent. For example, when Miles starts talking with Spider-Bite, Gwen gets visibly annoyed and webs him from behind, pulling him away like he's her property. It's a hilarious moment that really highlights their feelings for each other. Similarly, when Spider-Punk gets close to Gwen, Miles can't help but feel a bit envious. The creators intentionally included these characters to bring out the jealousy between Gwen and Miles, and it works brilliantly. And the moment when Miles tells Gwen that she was right, she never should have visited him, was a devastating blow, especially because earlier, she had said something similar out of anger when Miles followed her. But she didn't mean it, while Miles did.
We shouldn't have ever come to see you.
Dang!
You were right, Gwen. You should have never come to see me.
When he said that, he's speaking from a place of hurt and anger. And it's clear that his words devastate Gwen. She's heartbroken, and you can see in her face. Later on during the chase, she tries to grab him with her web, but he breaks free, his focus entirely on saving his father. Even though Gwen was kind of trying to stop him, he's determined to do whatever it takes to save his dad. And this moment only adds to Gwen's heartache. She didn't know what to do at that moment. She was clearly reluctant in chasing him. But things get even more complicated when he discovers that Gwen and Peter B knew the truth about his father's death, but didn't tell him. He's also confronted with the reality that he wasn't supposed to be bitten by the radioactive spider that gave him his powers. He's especially hurt by Gwen's role in all of this. Since she had been in his universe, they had shared some really special moments, and he felt a genuine connection with her. But now, he feels betrayed and hurt by her silence. He says goodbye to her, determined to save his father, no matter what. And as he jumps off the train, you can see the pain and devastation written all over Gwen's face, but at the same time she feels proud of him. Some fans might argue that Gwen isn't really in love with Miles because of the lies and deception, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Gwen is deeply in love with him, even if she doesn't always show it in obvious ways. She risks her mission just to see him. She keeps the haircut he accidentally gave her, and she even takes inspiration from his style. So no doubt that Miles has clearly left a lasting impact on her. After being exiled from the Spider Society, Gwen returns to her home universe, feeling lost and alone. But as soon as she arrives, she immediately seeks out the only thing that brings her solace, the photo of her and Miles. And in that moment, she also reconciles with her father, and they share a touching moment together. After making amends with her father, Gwen is determined to save Miles at all costs, and thankfully, she's aided by the goat of Across the Spider-Verse, Hobie Brown, also known as Spider-Punk. He had initially created a dimension-traveling watch for Miles, but after everything that had happened, he gave it to Gwen so she could travel to Miles' universe and help him. Spider-Punk and Spider-Man India have truly proven to be Miles' best wingmen, rooting for him and Gwen to finally be together. When Gwen arrives in Miles' universe, she expects to find him there, but her advanced spider senses lead her to realize that he's actually in a different universe. It's a mind-boggling discovery, and it speaks to the deep connection and bond between that they have. In another touching moment, Gwen decides to speak with Miles' parents, Rio and Jefferson. She earns their respect and gratitude by demonstrating how deeply she cares for their son. It's a heartwarming moment that erases the awkwardness of their previous encounter. With their support, Gwen promises to bring Miles back safely. She's determined to fulfill that promise, and she assembles a team of spider people to help her on her mission. Gwen's decision to create her own band of spider people is a powerful moment, and it perfectly encapsulates her journey in the movie. She started out feeling like she didn't belong, but by the end, she had found her place and her purpose. The cliffhanger left fans eager for more, as Gwen is determined to save Miles, even if he may not forgive her right away. But eventually, we know they'll reconcile, and finally get together, something that fans have been hoping for since the beginning. Meanwhile, Miles is stuck in a different universe with his alternate version of himself, the Prowler, and his uncle Aaron, who is alive in that universe. Gwen is determined to find him, no matter how long it takes. After analyzing the evidence and considering the points presented, I would say that Gwen is a little bit more in love, though it's obvious that they both clearly care for each other. She's willing to risk everything to save him, and her actions speak volumes about the depth of her feelings. It's sure to be a beautiful moment when Miles finally forgives Gwen and they reconcile. The circumstances surrounding that moment will be fascinating to watch unfold, and fans are eager to see how Miles will come to terms with everything that's happened.